Welcome back to ThinkTech. I'm Jay Fidell. This is ThinkTech Tech Talks. We talk about promising products and prospects at Oceanit, one of the oldest, if not the oldest, tech development company in the state. And they're still here. They're still doing it. And Patrick Sullivan, the founder, CEO, is still with it. So we're so happy to have him. And in a moment, we're going to discuss the promise and the prospects of what he's doing. Welcome to the show, Pat. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
So you have a lot of things going on. Let me start with your fast COVID test, which was announced a few weeks ago, and I'm very impressed with that because I believe that COVID is still a threat. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's going to be with us for the next several years, and it's particularly problematic for what are considered at-risk patients, and that means over 65 or people that have an underlying medical challenge. Could be diabetic, or could be obesity, could be a whole bunch of things, because COVID makes it worse, and so we're going to see and continue to see people getting pretty sick and in the hospital. And the virus is going to keep morphing. The thing about this virus is it's very clever. It's good at what it does. Seems like it's mellowed out, but it doesn't mean it wouldn't come back with a roar. So when I'm in discussions with the FDA on the future, the expectation is at least next 2-3 years, this is an issue. It needs to be managed.
But you're learning things. I have this vision of you talking to your researchers and scientists one morning and saying, there's a need for a fast COVID test. You guys, please go out and figure out how to do that. And lo and behold, you have this creative force at Oceanit, and they did do it. And in the process, you must have learned a lot about viruses and about testing. And these lessons will be valuable for the next pandemic. Am I right?
Absolutely. I mean, when it started, we had just finished up some work with DARPA on using a new AI tool we developed to produce the grammar of RNA, where we could design molecules and then synthesize them with what looks like a 3D printer. And then with the pandemic hitting, we said, let's do something useful. And that launched this whole process. And then we went through the regulatory and manufacturing and quality system. And what we did was we put some really smart young people on this who really learned how to develop the clinical study, this is across the US, all the regulatory compliance issues, quality systems issues, documentation, with a group of late 20, early 30 somethings. And my thought is that this is an asset that stays in Hawaii for a long time. And in the future, this kind of experience will be invaluable. What's interesting is companies we've worked with have said, they spent $20 to $30 million to get approval, and they couldn't get it done. And here we did it internally, and I said, I put a 29-year-old PhD aerospace engineer in charge of it, and she figured out the rest. And we just got a bright, hardworking, smart team. But we didn't spend $30 to $30 million trying to do that. We worked with smart people, of course, across the country, but this is all homegrown stuff with a really talented team of local kids.
Yeah, that's a remarkable thing. You've been doing that for 30 years plus. And, from the days when you first chaired the High Tech Development Corporation in Manoa and on forward, and still now today, you are the statement of tech development in Hawaai. So I applaud you for that. That's what I applaud you for that, Pat.
Thank you.
Haven't
Thank
stopped.
you. Well, it's kind of why I came out with a book a couple of years ago, which maybe another time we can talk about. But it's how we think, and it's a story of from the middle of the sea to the rest of the world. What are we doing? And it's become very curious for so many people around the world, because although we're in the middle of the sea, we're also a metaphor for a lot of other places around the planet. And this idea of how we think and how we think from Hawaii to the world turns out to be actually very interesting and relatable to a lot of these other people around the world.
You stay at the cutting edge for sure. Talk about the design thinking from Stanford. You've been involved in that for a long time, which is really important in the development of anything new, especially tech. But then, you mentioned a minute ago about AI, and if you had told me, Jay, we don't need AI, we're not doing anything with AI, I would faint right now. I'd fall down because I would make the absolute assumption that you are into AI up to your eyebrows.
We are. We started actually about 8 years ago on a human style AI based on the mathematics of linguistics, using the model of human cognition as language, and built a team and have been building all kinds of programs around that. And it's very interesting because humans are good with small data ambiguity, so it's a real different approach to what's going on with these large language models. And we're literally going to have another meeting later today with a whole bunch of folks to kind of talk about what we should focus on dealing with large language models. For example, can we produce an app that says certified human content or something like that? Because Chat GPT has got some really great applications and can be really positive. It could also be negative, and so we're trying to think about what to do. I think we got to play the ball where it lies, and it's out there, and people are using it. And again, it's remarkable, but there's still way more to do. So it's a great time to be doing AI.
If I may express a point, I watch the latest YouTube videos on all the things that are coming down the pike in AI. It's an experience. My wife hates me because I spend so much time watching these videos. But one thing I get is that there are some very complex AI, directions out there. What's not clear is where the market really is for the average John Doe. Because in order to actually install and use some of these AI products, you have to learn all about computer programming and all about everything, and you have to spend days and weeks trying to install all the predecessor software in order to get to the AI. So my thought, why do I feel you're already doing this? My thought is it's the user interface that will bring this technology to everyone, and everyone is waiting.
Absolutely. We've been experimenting with that now. It's funny because we were just going through this. We're working on, among other things, helping Department of Transportation on some of the airport projects. We got a whole team working on it. And we're looking at an AI tool to help with better notes and summaries, because we were playing with it where you can just do an inspection and just talking, and it captures it, it'll summarize it and put together a punch list. We don't know if it's ready for prime time, but we're actually playing with that because we thought, well, that could save a lot of time and be really useful. Now we got to make sure it does it properly, of course, but we're looking at it thinking, it's a tool that could actually upgrade the way we do documentation and make sure that we have better communication. And that's just one little thing, but we literally are playing with it internally right now because we thought, let's just try it out on our guys and see how we like it. And if that works, we actually have a variety of apps we use already with iPads and mobile phones for documentation, that geotag things, take pictures. But if we can do a narration and a summary as well, and then a compilation, it'll save time. And the idea is to keep people on point and focused as you've got construction and contractors working on things.
Yeah, that's fabulous. When you say time, you mean gobs and gobs and gobs of time to save.
Right.
The other thing is that my own experience on doing computer programming is this: is if you just interrupt me, if you distract me, if you make me waste time, then I forget what I was thinking about. But if you make it really quick, then I won't forget, and I stay focused, and therefore my productivity is not only enhanced by the software, it's enhanced by the fact that I can get right down to it, right?
Right. No, we think there's some real valuable things coming from it. we just don't know what they are yet, and we're trying to figure out. Well, we that's why it's worth exploring and doing some internal testing and checking in with the team. But we're playing with it, and we've like this other human style AI we've been building. We call it an anthronoetic artificial intelligence. Um, it's been really interesting because we've developed a whole bunch of tools. Right now, they're mostly in industrial and military applications, but it's they're really specialized in how to do things with sparse data and ambiguity, edge cases, things that don't have abundant data, and yet you still got to make a decision.
Hmm.
And those look actually quite promising.
That's
So
very exciting.
yeah, and it's all homegrown stuff here too. So that's the thing that's kind of interesting. I mean, these young folks we've got on the team, we give them room to kind of exercise their creativity and their thinking, and then we test it out. And I can't tell you some of these applications in the cyberspace, but it's like, holy crap, this works really well, and it's like it's almost too scary. But that whole field is growing so quickly and is in desperate need of upgrading ways of doing business to protect, everything we got, all of our infrastructure across the country.
Yeah. So one thing I get is that you're working aside from things that might affect me, my friends, my family. You're working on industrial products and developing them, which we may not hear about so quickly, but I would like to talk to you about them in the context of what you rolled out in Houston only a week ago on May 2nd, where you, showcased your product. Can you talk about what you did in Houston and what you showed them and what kind of reaction you got?
Yeah, so there's a conference that occurs once a year in Houston called the Offshore Technology Conference, and it's really become the biggest energy conference in the world. And so in a couple of days' time, pretty much every major energy company on the planet is there. They're all focused on the business of energy, not so much climate, but energy and the economics of it and the technology that makes it happen. And so there's about 100,000 people that participate in this event.
Wow.
And I was there, one of the keynotes, uh, and we've been involved in this now for a while. And then what we did was we've done this for a few years, but this was by far our best. So we did a tech showcase where we take technology that we've been building here and we bring it there to showcase it. And the technologies, it's a variety of things in a range of maturity. Some are like in the field and we're scaling, some are very early. And we took over the old Houston airport, which was built in the 1940s, which was kind of cool, and retroed it out with our stuff. And we had about 300 people. Pretty much every major energy company in the world was there. I think some of the technologies that are pretty mature, one is HEATX, which makes power plants, refineries, and pretty much any system on the planet that uses what's called a heat exchanger, but that's for any thermal power system in the world. They all use heat exchangers. So we're able to make it run more efficiently with a nano treatment of the inside of these tubes. You'll save about 10% of your energy and about 10% of your carbon. And you can do that right now. And so it was interesting because it's not just in the US, but it's across the world. So we've done projects in the Middle East and Europe and Alaska and a whole bunch of places. But what was really interesting is uh, for example, Exxon was there, and a lot of people see them as kind of the Darth Vader of the energy world. But they basically operate these massive facilities in refineries, and if we can take 10% of their carbon off the table in a matter of months, the impact of that is enormous. And so we see energy as transitioning, and I think most everybody does. But with this technology, we can deploy it pretty much immediately and save people money and save lots and lots and lots of carbon while we're transitioning. So their comment was, why aren't we doing more with them? And one of our guys says, well, this time, are you guys going to behave? Because they've been, we're really busy with people that want to do this, and they're very bureaucratic. And they said, no, they're gonna make an extra effort and streamline all their silly corporate stuff and get this done. But the guy says, yeah, we got 8,000 plants we want you to treat. And we're thinking, wow, how are we going to do this? Now, the system we built not only lays down nanotechnology, but it also uses an AI-driven robot. And then it uses virtual reality and video analytics to inspect every single piece of metal that this thing treats, documents all that data, does all the analysis, and it's a very well thought quality system that documents everything and drives all that data to the cloud. Plus, we have an AI driven tool that'll make those facilities run more efficiently. And so, we're looking at rolling that out across India. We were just in the Philippines, but all this started here in Hawaii.
Yeah.
But it's this combination of technology and tools. But the robotic AI system is interesting because it's not, you still got labor involved, but the robot does it exactly the same every time, no matter where you do it on the planet. And you end up with a high quality outcome that doesn't even exist anywhere in the world. So a lot of excitement there, but we also did hydrogen production with a program called HALO. It's a directed energy technology that produces hydrogen. And in the process of doing that with some of these, what are called produced water, which is kind of briny water that's used in the energy business, we can also extract lithium and a bunch of other minerals. So companies want to do what's like a big hui, which we've done a bunch of these, but they all put money in a bucket. It's our technology, but they want access to it. And we're looking at doing a demo up in Alaska, but they also want us to do a big demo up in Italy. So we just signed a program with the National Energy Company of Italy, which operates in 67 countries, and they want us all over the world. So we're scaling all this stuff up, but all this started in Hawaii. And so between producing hydrogen, transmitting hydrogen in pipelines, we've got a technology that allows the introduction of hydrogen and methane lines without embrittling the steel. So it won't, embrittlement is one of the big risks with hydrogen and steel. We can treat the inside, again, with this robotic driven, called a pig. It's like a spit wad, but it's a smart spit wad. Goes through the system, does all these repairs, and you can add hydrogen. And we also built a new hydrogen test facility that we can mix gases called Hexcel, the only one in the United States, and nothing is like that. And Department of Energy was totally blown away because now we can mix and match hydrogen, methane, do all kinds of metals, produce all that definitive data. It doesn't exist anywhere. So all this is homegrown stuff here in Hawaii, but again, it's from Hawaii to the world. And how do we make a difference around the planet? And this is one of those areas. So all that was brought as part of the demonstrations, and it was people were super excited to see it. And we've become kind of the definitive technology showcase at this annual event now, which
that's great.
Kind of bizarre because we're a Hawaii company. There's really no energy business here per se, but we're very popular with all these huge energy companies literally around the world. They're all pretty much we're working with them or they're in line to work with us.
You put a face on Hawaii. That's great. Hawaii, has a certain tech industry, and you represent it. So you have this. I'm trying to summarize the things you're talking about. The edge technology, is that the energy technology or something else?
No, energy tech. So the Edge Showcase is about protecting the environment and sequestering carbon in this energy transition. And that is what we were focusing on. So we brought zero emission cement, and we're using it to design underwater reefs. But we literally had a 3D printer printing reefs underwater with zero emission cement. And so we think that that's the kind of thing we can use in Hawaii and the rest of the world to increase habitat and protect the coastal area. But we're doing a thing called biomimetics. And what that means is biomimicry is we're mimicking the real world, but we're using engineering tools to fabricate and manufacture and deliver it. And that's a really good example because we can increase habitat to grow more coral and increase the fish stock and more biodiversity with this technology. But at the same time, at this event, we brought space armor. And space armor is a biomimetic inspired design for protecting things in outer space from hypersonic impact of debris. And we're trying to mimic, kind of interesting because we literally are producing a thing which is almost like a butterfly wing, but it's made of metal. And it's only done with a 3D printer because when you really examine what a butterfly does, it's a very sophisticated design, although you might not realize it. But when you look at it on a nanostructure, it's very elegant. And it's been designed through millions of years of Darwinian evolution. So what we're doing is we're replicating this very elegant design that nature's figured out and is on full display in things like butterflies or shells or other things. And we 3D print it. And then when we did this work early on, we actually simulated supersonic, like Mach 5, Mach 6 impact. It's remarkably strong and it's incredibly light. But then we had some of these, freight and rail companies contact us because some of these rail cars exploding, at 60 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
We think we can print the entire car with a 3D printer and it could sustain a massive impact like that without exploding.
Wow. Wow. What a great idea. So Pat, you've talked about, I don't know, half a dozen technologies here, more. The one that I didn't make any connection with is the one called advanced metamaterials. What is that? Is that something you've discussed?
Yes, and we're producing it. So advanced metamaterials is really, it looks like a bunch of sand, but they're literally designed and manufactured. And we started this years ago here where we were building sort of stealthy materials on the lanai downtown Honolulu, but we can only produce a little bit. Then we were contacted about trying to turn cement into a sensor. And, Shell, actually oil, wanted to know if we could do this because they wanted to know, can you measure loads? And so we produced a different kind of material. Instead of stealthy, we made it noisy. We tweaked up the design, but they look like grains of sand. So we produced these on the lanai here, like a cup of it. And then we did these tests actually out at Sand Island, and we could measure the loads of trucks driving over things. It was really interesting.
Oh.
Then the question is, can you scale it? So we did what's called metascale manufacturing. We set up a facility in Houston to produce from cups. We went to half-ton pickup loads. And that was to work out all the bugs so that we could produce it. What they want is freight car loads. And we can do that now. And so the cost has dropped almost 1,000x. So it's actually quite affordable. And then with that design, you can tweak it for all kinds of weird things that you might also want to make. Because now that you master the technology, you can repurpose it for a bunch of other things, which we're actually, it's funny, we're doing a project, it's a military project where we're producing a super nutritious food for troops that have extremely high energy demand, but have no access to anything. And we're just going through testing now, but we're using some of the same techniques. So the technique we developed to do this is kind of interesting because we weren't sure how to do it to go from what we were doing on the lanai. We examined how they make M&Ms, and we tried to learn from how they make chocolate to adjusting that and experimenting with it to produce this machine, which is in Houston, which now we can scale to produce massive amounts of this material.
You must be busy all day protecting this intellectual property, not only the products, but the processes.
We've got a whole, there's a few hundred people here, but I would say there's a whole bunch. So we call the green team. So we got the blue team, which is doing the basic science, about 100 plus PhD scientists and engineers. On the other side, we got a bunch of folks on the green team, which is all products, execution, scale up, delivery. How do we impact humans and society? And with that, we got a team of attorneys working on IP and making sure that we're not, we're trying to pay attention to it. But the green team spends a lot of time on that because we do some IP on the science side. And once you get into applications, you're also generating more IP over there too. So they're producing a portfolio of IP for each one of these technologies.
Great, got to. One thing strikes me though is if these things are globally accepted and deployed and processed for that matter in large scale, you're going to have a network which requires global presence, and that means that people are going to say to you, Pat, you can't just stick in Honolulu. You've got to come here and go there. You've got to attend to the development of a processing plan. You've got to be with us, Pat. You've got to expand to other places. How are you going to resist that and stay in Hawaii?
Well, so Hawaii's our home, so there's no question there, and that's how everybody feels about it. But we are working around the planet. But we're exploring different business models. So you got to realize we don't just, innovate technology. We innovate finance. We innovate business models. We innovate scale up. It's a broad spectrum of innovation and business processes. So one of the things we're looking at, we had a bunch of meetings on for the HEDX technology. It's like a franchise model, like a McDonald's. So we provide training and technology, and we train up people in different countries. And it literally is just like a McDonald's. So instead of the malted milk machine, we've got these AI-driven machines. We provide all the goods and chemistry, and they do the execution, and then there's shared economics. So that way it becomes win-win-win. We create jobs in these other places. And, our corpus is centered in Hawaii.
Good. We want it that way forever. So coming home for a minute, you have a collaboration with Hawaii Gas on a hydrogen technology. Can you talk about that?
So Hawaii Gas is, I think, the most progressive gas company in the country, or one of the most. And what they're doing is they're adding and they're experimenting with how to add hydrogen to get off of reduce their carbon footprint, right? So instead of just only methane, they want to add more and more hydrogen that you can then pump through these lines. So we're trying to work with them to make sure that it's all safe and effective in producing that data so that they've got they're very clear that it's the right thing to do. But they're a very progressive group, and their investors are really trying to go green. And hydrogen has got huge potential. So we're looking at the industrial scale up of that, but it turns out they're, I think, the most advanced and sophisticated little gas company in the country.
It's a great collaboration, it is, as you say.
They're great to work with and good people.
So where's the future for you, Pat? I mean, you can look back down the field, back to field, and see remarkable things that have happened. You've had your shoulder to the wheel for decades, and you're at a point now where you're at the cutting edge on an international kind of analysis. So the question is, where can you go from here? Interplanetary? Where can you go from here?
Well, we are working on space, so it's taken a while to get, but the space armor is a really good kind of hook for us because everybody needs it, and the results are off the chart. But there's a whole bunch of stuff we're looking at in space. But I would say, the world needs to constantly reevaluate technology, and what we're doing is we're trying to build a team, and we're looking at the next 100 years, right? So what do we do to help the world, be a better place? And we're always asking ourselves, there's a real discipline to this process where we go through this exercise, and it's really important. So in my view, What we're planning to do is to do what we do, but better. But we're not limited or constrained by geography or subject. It's just we're only constrained by imagination. And of course, access to educated people, which is critical. So if there's one thing I would shout out is that education is the future of Hawaii, and we need to be supporting the schools in the University of Hawaii.
Absolutely. Your comments remind me of the dichotomy between making the world better and making it worse. I mean, for example, there's that Israeli company Pegasus, which they could sell their software and make the world better, or they could sell their software to people who are dedicated to making it worse. Do you have a red line on that? If somebody comes to you and you believe that your software, your hardware, your technology would be used for the wrong purpose, what do you do?
It's a serious issue and something we think about and do discuss. And we're on the one hand, we're optimistic that at the end of the day, the good guys will win. But on the other hand, we're trying not to be naive about it too. So it's a delicate balance, but it's something we absolutely discuss. We're actually trying to do good things, but we also realize that you've got parts of the world that are in really difficult spots. And you look at how inhumane the world can be in places like Ukraine, where we forget just how brutal things can be if you're not paying attention. So it's a tough problem, and we're working across all fronts, but it is something we do discuss. Absolutely.
It strikes me that, just wrapping up on what you've been saying is that, being here in Hawaii, being dedicated, committed to Hawaii, that means being dedicated and committed to the ethic of Hawaii, to aloha, to getting along, to making contributions to your community and your society. And so Hawaii gives you a certain philosophical orientation that's got to be useful in what you do. Am I right?
Absolutely. It's shocking how powerful that is. Because at the core, this is what everybody really wants to do. Everybody wants to be Hawaii, one way or the other. I mean, I was just spent hours and hours with our collaborators in Italy, and they're enamored with the whole idea about how we can do this and do it from a place like this. But it isn't just them; it's folks that come here from all over the Middle East, from all over South America. And I mean, it's kind of interesting. Hawaii has got a lot to give to the world, and one of those things is the way we work together. And we find that one of our huge strengths here is kind of these soft skills. It's how we have people work with all kinds of people from all sorts of backgrounds, religions, and ethnicities, and they bring aloha. And with that, they can work with anybody. It's very disarming, and people actually respond really well to that. It's kind of, I don't know if I'd say it's a secret weapon, but we send these local kids to a lot of places. And I say, look, be comfortable in your own skin and who you are. Don't ever forget that.
Patrick Sullivan, founder, chief executive of Oceanit Inc. Oceanit Inc. Just only beginning. Thank you so much, Patrick.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha. Thanks.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.